I'm Millie Sullivan. I'm the Alvin B and Julie O. Stiles Professor of Chemical Engineering and Associate Chair of Chemical and Biomolecular Engineering here at UD. And it's really a pleasure to be here with you this afternoon and facilitate our session with today's expert. Before I introduce our guest, I just have a couple reminders. One is that you're encouraged to submit any questions that you may have during the event, and to do that, really just simply type them into the Q&A box you'll find at the bottom of your screen. We'll be sure to get to as many of those questions as we can. And so with that, it's really my great pleasure to introduce Carol Ammon, the founder and retired CEO of Endo Pharmaceuticals. Carol has really been involved deeply with UD and a number of other important ventures over her career. She's served on UD's Board of Trustees since 2013. She previously served as trustee and chair of the board of Christiana Care and also as a member of the Healthcare Initiative Advisory Board at Harvard. Carol's also been recognized throughout her career for her incredible philanthropic work. This includes the 2018 Pete DuPont Freedom Award. This celebrated her really for her success in launching Endo Pharmaceuticals and importantly for its impact on Delaware over an ensuing more than 20 years, and also her philanthropic work to help transform Wilmington Hospital into a state-of-the-art center of healing and compassion. And I think also really importantly, Carol shares a lifelong passion for and dedication to healthcare with her wife, Marie Pinizzato. So this is a nice transition to comment on really how their passion has fueled some impactful generosity that's felt throughout the healthcare industry in the state, but also right here at UD. So Carol and Marie have been generous supporters of the College of Health Sciences, and in 2017 they made a truly transformational gift to UD to establish the Ammon Pinizzato Biopharmaceutical Innovation Center, which is now headquartered on UD's Star campus. And so with that, it's really a pleasure to have you with us today, Carol. Welcome. And I wanted to kick off our questions just by asking you if you could introduce yourself and really just tell us a bit about your role in the biopharmaceutical industry over your career.
Sure. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. I have been an extremely fortunate person over my career. I started in pharmaceuticals and actually in R&D in the development part of making new products. And when I look back now, it's so rudimentary compared to what we have here today. But I spent about 25 years with DuPont Merck and had an opportunity to transition through almost every aspect of the business, which really put me in an excellent position when they had some assets to sell, because I had enough experience in all of those areas. And so I decided to buy some of the products and create Endo Pharmaceuticals, which was really the most wonderful 10 years of my life, where we really focused on pain management and got to help a lot of vulnerable people. And I think people in vulnerable situations is something that I've always had a passion about, whether it's poverty or health injustice or social injustice or whatever. So when Endo became as successful as it did, thanks to the good work of everybody, it gave us, Marie and myself, a chance to really get involved in philanthropy. And we feel like we got the gift because you get to decide where you're going to spend this pot of money and where you can leverage it and do the most good. And so we decided we'd focus in the areas of healthcare and education, and with a specific look towards those with vulnerabilities. And when we first heard about the Biopharmaceutical Innovation Center, and I had been aware of the University of Delaware through my board work, and Marie got her MBA there as well. And I've always had the greatest just feelings for the University of Delaware. I think they do such a great job for the community, for their graduates, and the graduates do great work for everybody. So when we heard of the Biopharmaceutical Innovation Center, we were not planning on making a major gift. We had heard a little bit about it, and we thought we'd give a gift, but nowhere near what we ended up giving. But when Dr. Zasanis and Dr. Kelvin came to our house and started talking about the center, we were really overwhelmed. And we were overwhelmed because of what it was going to do for for so many people, sick people, for the community, for scientists, for the university, for creating new businesses in Delaware. It goes on and on and on, and it just has so much life to it. And when Dr. Lee, rather, I called him Dr. Kelvin Lee, when he started talking about this, we just, again, were overwhelmed, and we spoke about it afterwards. And we felt that this was an opportunity made for us to get heavily involved in. Marie, as a physician, has spent her life helping people, and myself in pharmaceuticals. And when we realize now this gives an opportunity for personalized medicine to be able to happen even faster with the bio innovation in the manufacturing, we said, let's be the main gift. And we have no regrets. We're so happy we did this. Every time I'm at a meeting, I get even more excited, and the board is made up of terrific people. And of course, Dr. Lee is just amazing, and he's brought so many great people to the table. So we're very lucky, for sure.
Yeah, well, we're just so grateful for your generosity and for Marie's generosity, and I wanted to kind of touch on a theme I heard in your answer, which was that, you know, I heard sort of a bringing people together theme, and also innovation, and that it's the two things together that was something I heard you combine a few times. And I wondered if you could maybe comment on, you know, an example or two in your career where you've seen the sort of bringing people together with differences result in innovations.
Well, I'll talk about Endo first. We were really lucky to be able to bring so many talented people together that not only were talented, but basically had a passion for helping people that were in pain, be they physicians, salespeople, R&D folks, whoever was in the company. We all shared that same desire to do something for people in pain. And one of the greatest things was a product we got to in-license from a very innovative 3-person company. The founder was 87 years old at the time, trying to find help for his wife, who suffered from postherpetic neuralgia. And when he saw what they were doing at the University of San Francisco by applying lidocaine to her back in intramuscular injections, and she got relief for 1 day out of 30, he came up with a way to create a transdermal patch of lidocaine. And it ended up revolutionizing the people that suffered with chronic pain after shingles. And so we licensed that product, and it really was just such a wonderful thing for Endo to put us more on the map and be able to do some other great things with pain products. So I think if you can combine passion, hard work, and just innovation, and then you can really make a success of things. And I think that we're lucky today that we have the tools, the technology to keep innovating, and we can shorten that time frame in which those innovations come to market. When I started in the pharmaceutical industry, it was 12 years and many failures till you were lucky enough to get a product to the market. Now we can get a product so quickly, and then we can find a way to innovate in manufacturing to get it to the bedside so quickly for people that are suffering and really need that assistance. So,
yeah. I was wondering, and sort of building on that a little bit, when you think about what you've seen in terms of changes in the directions the industry is taking over the years, what do you see as and you've highlighted a few things, but what are some of the most exciting directions that we're seeing now versus 15, 20 years ago?
I think there's a couple. I think number one, I mentioned the speed by which we can now get new medications to people. The FDA has worked very hard to really be a partner with industry to find ways. Just look at the vaccines. That's a perfect example. They were able to get emergency use for these vaccines by understanding the platform that had been created over the last 10 years. So it's everybody partnering together to utilize the information that's out there to create that speed, but also create that innovation. Who would think years ago that we'd get 5 vaccines to the market so quickly? But again, it's using those platforms that have been built on. And so I think that, that's one thing, but I just think also the ability to be able to screen compounds and understand what the potential are for those compounds so quickly, and then be able to do the studies rapidly is really, those are major changes within the industry. So, and I think the whole just pathways by which we understand now how drugs that once they were all basically therapeutically aligned. So if you had a drug for stomach cancer, that was for stomach cancer. And now we realize that there's a limited number of pathways by which these diseases travel. And now drugs that were for this pathway now work for this pathway, and we can screen that and we can tell that. So the information is just, it's kind of overwhelming when I think back how rudimentary the work we did in those days. But I guess that was pretty cutting edge in the day. So Lord knows what it'll be 10, 20 years from now. It's exciting.
Yeah, it is. I was wondering, and I wanted to think about, some of well, I have sort of two broad questions related to your decisions and choices in building your career. One of them is kind of what has fueled your interest in particular therapeutic areas. Personalized medicine, for example, you mentioned.
Sure. Well, I think, first, having worked at DuPont, the early products that DuPont inherited when they were purchased from the original Endo Laboratories company back in that was back in the 20s, and they purchased them in the late 60s and got involved. It was heavily pain focused. So I think that created a passion for me in trying to make changes over the course of time. And that became even more heightened when we realized that pain was undertreated for a number of years, and figuring out ways to treat safely as well. So that became one passion of mine. But the personalized medicine, now that I'm older and I've seen my own parents and parents of friends who have passed on that would be saved today, 20 years later, had it been for some of these innovations that took place in the industry. So the fact that it's saving so many lives, and particularly too, you think about the children with some of these diseases that have previously really been untreatable, and now, thanks to the genius and the innovation and the technology, we're able to save people. And so that to me is just, it's another passion of mine to be able to get medicine to the right person at the right time so that we have the best outcome possible.
Yeah. No, it's amazing to see how these things have evolved so quickly, I think. Sort of related, but then on a more career focused topic, I wondered too, I was struck by how both you and Marie have taken risks in making choices to change in your career. And I thought that really was the secret sauce in your ability to be innovators. And I wondered, for one of those examples, and that could be the decision to start Endo or other philanthropic ventures you've chosen, but how have you come to the decision to make some of those, take those risks and make those changes?
Sure. I call them defining moments in one's life. And I had been at DuPont for 24 years when they decided to send me off to Harvard to study in the senior management program. And I had always thought that I'd one day run a division for DuPont. And that was my goal. That's why I got a lot of different experiences, so I'd have that background. And when I was there, I really realized that I wanted more than that. I wanted the ability to innovate myself and not be within a corporate structure. And fortunately, within about 8 months, that opportunity came along. And I think it was that experience that helped me to grow and to realize a lot more about myself, and to be able to raise my hand immediately and say, I want to buy those products. And it was, again, with the people that I hired, we had 35 people for the first 2 years, and then we had 65 for the next couple of years. We kept the company fairly versatile or virtual until we could really make sure we were going to be profitable before we added a lot of resources that would have to let go if we weren't. And so I think that that experience just really continued to fuel my desire to make change wherever that might be. And when I retired, I had the opportunity and I purposely picked the time to retire because the company had gotten a lot of press, and my name was known around town. So it was an opportunity to really morph into a different direction and serve on not-for-profit boards. And I think a great joy of mine was being able to be chairman of Christiana Care Hospital and further get vested in the whole life sciences area. And so that was very exciting. And, eventually University of Delaware and a number of different boards, the Healthcare Advisory Board at Harvard, which was very forward thinking. So those things really were very rewarding to me, and an ability to fill my passion. And most recently working with the Reach community, Reach Riverside, where we're trying to build a affordable housing community with healthcare and early learning centers for the more disadvantaged within the Wilmington area. And I'd also add that I just graduated with a doctorate in nursing practice on Friday. So I decided to go back to school because, again, I wanted something more in the medicine area. And I really enjoyed the opportunity to work directly with vulnerable people. It's one thing to sit on boards, which I'm so proud that everybody does that, but the opportunity to work hands-on with people, and I worked in addiction medicine, was so rewarding. So like I say, I'm a very blessed person.
Well, congratulations on the degree. I saw that you had returned to doing to education, and I thought that was a really sort of interesting pivot point too. And I wondered, and sort of bringing this back to UD, how do you think about using education to fuel innovation and change and that sort of thing in your own career?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's most critical. And as I mentioned about that Harvard experience, I would never have thought of leaving DuPont, because I love DuPont. They were great to me. And I would never have thought that I had that capability to go and innovate like that. So it's education that does that. And it really, I think, triggers what's important in your own life and what you choose to do. So I think what the University of Delaware is doing, when I look at all the different areas they're involved in, I look at some of our friends and their students, their children, and what they're studying and how excited they are. And the difference from age 18 to 19 when they've had that UD experience it's amazing. So I think education is pivotal.
Yeah, it's one of the best parts about a career in this area, I think.
Yes.
So I wanted to then sort of turn to asking you a little bit more about, really if you could share what inspired then you and Marie to make your gift to name the Ammon Penizato Biopharmaceutical Innovation Center at UD.
Yeah, we decided that we've really enjoyed all of the opportunities we've had to donate money and to do things over the years, but we looked at this gift as unique to us. A doctor being married to a person in the pharmaceutical industry, both at the latter periods in our career, both fiercely desirable of seeing medicine continue to evolve and being able to do the right things for people at very vulnerable times in their life. And when we heard everything about what this opportunity was about, we just really felt like this was an opportunity we couldn't pass up. And this would be our legacy gift. It tempers what you can do in the future relative to other gifts, but we really felt this was the most important gift we will end up giving in our lifetime.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And so that also brings me to some related questions. I mean, one is how you see universities broadly having opportunities to promote and enable biopharmaceutical innovation.
I think they're key. I really think it's where young minds are being challenged to do their very best. And the environment today, I think, is fairly rich in terms of the equipment that they have, the technology that sits in universities, the great professors that are there to be able to teach these students. And I recently had the opportunity, several meetings, to work with a group of UD graduate students that are working at Christiana Care in their CRISPR technology, and to listen to these young minds and what they've been able to do. And it's amazing what they do. I'm always completely overwhelmed by it. But so I think the university is the perfect environment to seed that type of learning, that desire for innovation, and that desire to make changes in the world. So I think we need to continue to fund that. Donors need to continue to fund that. And I think universities also need to find ways to continue to out-license their technology and be able to utilize the royalties so that that comes back to the university to continue to fund these great programs that exist. College today is nowhere near the way it was 50 years ago when I started. 50 years ago. But anyway, we need to keep funding that one way or the other.
Yeah, yeah. And so then also bringing that sort of flavor of question also back in a more specific context to UD and your role on the Biopharmaceutical Innovation Board. Curious if you can comment on some of the ways that you see UD in particular being uniquely positioned for success in supporting these innovations.
Well, I think in a couple of ways. I think Delaware is a great place to be able to do startup businesses. I think it's a very friendly environment to do that. So having this at the University of Delaware and that ability then to do those things will be very beneficial to the state. And I think that the advisory board that Dr. Lee has put together is just incredible. There are people from many different biopharmaceutical companies, and I'm really just stunned by the knowledge that they do have. My knowledge is, I've been out of the industry now for about 15 years. Their knowledge is very crisp. They have great networking capabilities. And Dr. Lee has been able to create and bring together so many people from outside companies. So it's creating the opportunity to quickly move the technology and the innovation, but then also create the opportunities for the startup businesses. So I think Delaware is well positioned as a result of this. It'll pay a lot of dividends. Let me put it that way.
Yep. So I think just sort of rounding in on a maybe a last larger scale question is wondering about, and you mentioned earlier what we've seen over the past now, 15 months, the pace of innovation towards vaccines for COVID-19. And I know there's a number of factors that have come together to make that happen. I'm wondering what you see as the pathway to making that type of innovation and speed sustainable, because it's been pretty incredible, but it's also been a unique time.
Sure, we certainly don't want a pandemic to make it sustainable. But I think, if there's a bright side to the pandemic, I think that all of us as citizens of the United States, and particularly of the biopharmaceutical industry, have come to appreciate how effective we can be when we work together. And here, everybody was willing to work together, to share, and to just make it happen. So if we can create that same sharing and innovative environment when we're not in a pandemic and continue that, then I think things will advance very quickly. And I think that's exactly what Dr. Lee's doing. He's bringing all these different companies in to develop different systems and technologies and everything else. And I think there'll be a lot more sharing. I really do.
Well, that's wonderful. I want to thank you again. It's been just such a pleasure to get to talk to you today and to learn about your experiences and those of you and Marie together in terms of supporting UD. So thank you again. I've really appreciated this, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you. It was wonderful.
Thanks so much. Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye.